you, Dr. Chua. I would like also to thank the organizing committee, and I extend my thanks also to the scientific committee and to Mrs. Yemna for giving us this chance to present in this very prestigious conference. So as you can see on the slide, the title of my presentation is Language Policy in Morocco, Dominant Discourses and Educational Justice. So as you can guess, it's about discourses that shape the educational discourse in Morocco. So I will start with an introduction in which I will give the background for the study, because I'm here reporting a study that I conducted by myself. I complain about funding because we don't have funding. Empirical research needs money, and unfortunately our universities don't do that. Next I will delve into the conceptual framework of the study, and then I will talk about the methodology, and then the results and discussion, and finish with a conclusion. So in 2019, in the Moroccan government legislated a new language policy that was known as language alternation policy, and which stipulated that scientific and technical school subjects should be taught in French. However, this language policy created a very hot and contentious debate in the Moroccan society, and that revealed that the policy was ideologically biased. So that's why we believe that this policy, which was created back in 2019, aimed at strengthening foreign languages in public domains such as education. And the close reading of the official document shows that the language policy in Morocco is framed by a number of macro discourses. I'm going to explain later on what we mean by that. So the paper argues that these macro discourses are used only to justify and rationalize foreign languages, or the expansion of foreign languages in the Moroccan school at the expense of national languages. So the aim of the paper or the study was to map the major macro discourses that frame language policy in Morocco. So benefiting from the synergy resulting from corpus linguistics and CDA, the study aimed to answer two main research questions. So what macro discourses frame language policy in Morocco, and how are these macro discourses used to strengthen the status of foreign languages at the expense of national official ones. So the study was framed by critical language policy, and as you know, critical language policy is an approach within language policy and planning research. It was influenced by critical social theory, also by postmodern thought, and also by critical linguistics. And it created a shift, a theoretical shift within research, within the language policy and planning research, because it reconceptualized language policy as an agenda-driven social practice, and that's contrary to what has been conceptualized within the pragmatist or the technicist paradigm, which used to think of language policy as an objective process that is used only to overcome problems of national development. So the critical language policy aims mainly to uncover how official language policy can create, reproduce, and maintain language and social inequalities and hierarchies. So according to one of the main figures within this approach, which is Tolofson, so he contends that the critical approach to language policy acknowledges that policies often create and sustain various forms of social inequality, and that policymakers usually promote the interests of dominant social groups. So critical language policy aims to reveal the power dynamics from the perspective of language policy research. Also, also the study uses Ball's 1993 conceptualization of policies in general as discourses. And this is a very powerful conceptualization of policy. So I think first we need to define discourse, and I guess that you know that Foucault defines discourse as practices that systematically form the objects of which they speak. So likewise, when we think of policies, and especially educational policies, as discourses, that means that they shape how we understand those policies and consequently how we implement those policies on the ground. In other words, policies create or produce truths and knowledges, and you can take, for instance, the example of the LAC policy or the French medium instruction policy. So the LAC policy in Morocco created this knowledge. It validated that French and in general foreign languages are scientific languages, whereas national official language like Arabic and Tamazight are dysfunctional in this field of teaching science school subjects. So all these policies, they have a hegemonic effect because they create what? They create positions for policy actors, but also for languages. They create hierarchies, linguistic hierarchies, where you have foreign languages usually at the top and national languages or local languages at the bottom of the hierarchy. So concerning the methodology we followed in this study, we use, as I said, corpus-assisted critical discourse analysis. So this marriage between corpus linguistics and CDA, that is critical discourse analysis. So we included 17, the corpus we built using Antonk software included 17 official documents, and we used mainly the criterion of relevance to language policy and I would like to note that the corpus was in Arabic, so all the researches were conducted in Arabic. So concerning data analysis, we used analytical tools from, as I said, CDA, that is, for example, analyzing argumentation schemes and conducting close textual analysis of certain passages and concordances. And also we used some tools from corpus linguistics, such as absolute frequencies, such as dispersion statistic, concordancy, and collocational analysis. So concerning the results, so we could identify 4 main macro discourses. I call them macro discourses because they shape educational reform in general in Morocco. So here I will talk about only 3 main discourses. That's crisis discourse, quality discourse, and equity discourse. So as you know, crises, when we think of crises, usually they create this opportunity for change. And Habermas reminds us that in his book, Legitimation Crisis, reminds us that crises, they create this opportunity for structural change within systems. And also they surround any reform with a sense of urgency, and this sense of urgency usually sidelines questions who benefits from policies, especially in the education domain. And as you know, every policy, especially, as I said, education policy, they have losers and they have someone who benefits or someone who loses. So in the corpus we discovered that there is a discourse about crisis. The Moroccan school suffers from a crisis. It is in a crisis. And you find this in all official documents. As you can see on the table of concordancy there, so we have, for example, the charter, we have the strategic vision, we have the roadmap, and we have the analytical report which was published by the Higher Council for Education. So these are the main documents in the corpus, and all of them, they talk about this crisis in the education So crisis discourse in the education domain is part of a macro crisis, and we find this in medicine, in all other fields. And what is interesting about the crisis discourse in the education is that it is considered as the origin of all the other crises, and it is considered as an ongoing crisis at least since the 90s of the last century. And also it is limited only, and this is very interesting, limited only to the public schools, so there is no mentioning of the private sector or the private school. So concerning the collocation and analysis, it showed that this discourse, as I said, is prevalent in all official documents. And for instance, we have the word deterioration, so the word collocates with the word school, showing a statistically significant consistency with a likelihood of 22.25 and an MI, that is mutual information, of 4.55. And these statistics show that the relationship is very strong and that the discourse is very urgent. So I will move directly to the next discourse, which is quality discourse. It's also prevalent in all official documents, and as we know, quality is one of the main tenets in the new reform which was introduced in 2019. And this is reflected in the motto of the strategic vision for a school of equity, quality, and promotion. As you can see in the figure there is an even distribution of the term quality in the corpus, and again in all the main documents in the corpus. Okay, so it's widespread in all the official documents, this rhetoric of quality. So quality in education is defined as enabling learners to fully achieve their potential through optimum mastery of cognitive, communicative, emotional, rational, and creative competencies. So there is this stress on, or emphasis on, the communicative side of this policy. Okay, so it is considered that students must master foreign languages, and if we are to characterize the Moroccan school as a school of quality, Moroccan students should master foreign languages, and it is considered as part of the solution to the crisis that we have in our educational system. For instance, we have the framework states that to ensure the quality of the education system, bridges must be established between its components, and plurilingualism and language alternation should be adopted. And the metaphor of bridges, which occurs more than 80 times in the corpus, it literally means that we should adopt the French language at the lower levels of the education system in order to meet the norms, the linguistic norms in higher education. So there is a strong emphasis or constant emphasis on the measurement of educational quality in the official documents, and some of the measures that are suggested. For example, we have a constant revision of all legislative documents, and also there is this call for the establishment of a quality of framework in order to assess the education quality across the education system, but this hasn't been done yet in Morocco. But the question, is this a genuine plan? Okay, I don't think so. What I think is that it is just a response to a globalized view of language, a new liberal view of language. And I will allow me to quote, or to read this quote from the analytical report. So it says, quality in the field of education has witnessed significant development across various parts of the world. Measuring quality is achieved through international research and evaluation reports. This process also involves the formulation of appropriate standards and criteria. As a result, competition has arisen to seek the quality seal awarded by evaluation and accreditation bodies. Hence, the education and training system in Morocco is called upon to respond to quality requirements. So it is only a response to a new liberal globalized view of educational quality, which puts much emphasis on the quantitative rather than the qualitative aspects of of education. And because I'm short of time, I will move to the last discourse. So it's equity discourse. Also, it's prevalent in the corpus, and it is one of the fundamental principles that underlie the recent educational reform, and also it's reflected in the motto of the strategic vision. So it is systematically associated with quality discourse, and we have the statistics there. So, for example, we have a likelihood of 62.82 and mutual information of 7.5. And as you can see in the graph all there, that's the network of the collocations of the term equity, and there is a systematic association between quality and equity, although there is a tension between the two, because quality belongs to the field of, as I said, so quality belongs to the field of new liberal discourse, and equity belongs to this human rights discourse about inclusion and okay. So let me move on. So I just want, there is the official document stresses that we should establish equity and equal opportunity in the learning of languages. And it draws this comparison between the private sector students and the public sector students. But I think this is an undue comparison that is only a false equivalence, falsely, because we cannot compare the two sectors. So I believe that to democratize education, we should respect the linguistic rights of our students, and in order to ensure epistemological access to all learners, because this, if we don't do this, the official language in education policy will only deepen and reproduce inequalities rather than eliminate them. So to conclude,
in 30 seconds, could you?
Okay. So in this study, we try to show that particular macro discourse can strategically be employed in order to rationalize biased language policies, and that this crisis discourse serves as a powerful strategy for legitimizing biased language policy decisions, such as it creates a sense of urgency that sidelines crucial questions about the nature and beneficiaries of the proposed reform. And we showed that equity and quality discourses are mere rhetoric, and also we showed that this is all belongs to a new liberal view of education quality and equity, which in Morocco, unfortunately, we are embracing without even criticizing it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that fantastic presentation as well. Questions in the room for Khalid?
I had one here.
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Sorry. Well, I was listening to you and referring and analyzing the legal documents. These are legal documents, yes. And I was wondering whether you believe really Morocco has an educational policy. Because actually, let me just finish why I'm saying this. Of course, the High Council for Education did undertake an evaluation of the system and came out with recommendations. How many of these recommendations are being implemented? And the slogan there is equity, quality, and so on. But personally, and I want to hear your view, I believe that there's a real gap between theory and practice, and this is one of the key issues. In addition to the fact that if we want quality, we should not go for privatization. We have more and more private schools, both at primary, secondary, and higher education levels. And I think that there is a trend, and we will arrive to it soon, to really getting rid of all what is public in Morocco. We are starting with the health care sector. We are getting to education. So to what extent do you really believe that there is a will, a political will, to improve the educational system, public system of education?
Thank you, Mr. Zulkairat. You are right. There is no political will in Morocco. So that's what I tried to show from my presentation. There is no. This is a critical study of language policy in Morocco, especially at the level of discourse. So the official discourse claims that equity, and as we said, in the motto of the strategic vision, okay, for a school for everybody, and it's an equitable school, but that's just mere rhetoric. Okay, on the ground, the realities are different. Yes, there is a stark difference between what is said and what is implemented or found in our schools, in our classrooms, on an everyday basis. Okay, you are right. So what we miss and what we need in Morocco is that there isn't this political will to engage in a true reform, and that's what the question I ask: is this a genuine plan in Morocco? Is it a genuine plan, or is it just to align with the international discourse on education and to use these fancy terms, equity, equality, and okay? So I believe there is no genuine plan for bringing about change in the education system.
If you allow me just to add to the fact that actually there is no political education, educational policies, because actually with each government there is a new minister, yes, and the policies change. So as long as there is no continuity and the sector, the educational sector, becomes an independent sector and does not depend on political parties, there will be no reform, there will be no quality, no inclusion.
Yes, and if you allow me, this is what happened at the beginning when they debated the policy of introducing French or teaching the scientific and technical subjects in public schools in French. It was a very hard debate, and it showed that the policy is biased and that the consumers of the policy are not heard. The voice of the consumers, Shuhami calls them the consumers of language policy. Their voices are not heard. Okay, so what you hear is the voices of politicians, and we have this ideological struggle between politicians, and the ones who are concerning the students and educators are not heard.
Thank you for that interaction. Maybe one more question. Well, we have 1 more minute.
Yeah, I guess there are many questions. Thank you for the issue, because this issue of language, is like a thorny one. Complex, multifaceted. When you speak about discourse, you have to speak about the idea of power, ideology, and hegemony, etc. Things that need to be analyzed once you engage into analyzing discourse. And a good example that Professor Khalid spoke about is this idea of a lack of continuity. We have a minister who comes and says that we will adopt the bachelor system. Then overnight another one comes and then just goes back to the old system, which was so much criticized just a few days before he came. So I think there is a hidden curriculum that we do not speak about.
So that's struggle of power.
Yeah, to discourse that is, I would say, discourse of those who are in power, and then things that keep going on. We see always, we have promises, and we speak of dreams, things that will come in the future, but because promises are never, I would say, kept. I will go back to the question of culture a few minutes ago. In Morocco, when we send students to other countries, even days of orientations are not enough. We have very few courses about intercultural communication which can prepare students to go to other countries. And in the departments of English, yes. Then when we look at the students who are or have a science background, go to study abroad, in a context where English is the native language, even French, we have a serious problem to adopt, because most of the time they study in Arabic, and we have years which we school they're just teaching in Arabic. Then when they go to university, they study most of the time in French, and then when they go to abroad, they find that problem at least at the level of language. So there are so many things that I said that need to be reconsidered. And research, I guess, is very much lacking in this respect. Thank you again. These are just questions to think about.
Good. Well, I just want to close thanking everyone. It was a fantastic panel, a fantastic session, and now we have a break, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Shall we give a round of applause for our presenters?